Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another riveting session broadcast of Questions with Colin. I am your host, Colin McCormick, parish administrator here at St. Francis Xavier. And today we get to interview one of the most mysterious members of our staff, the quiet, soft-spoken,
Up till now,
Father John Martin. Before we get started, our apologies. Hair and makeup didn't show up again, so you get us full transparency. Full transparency. Father Martin, welcome. You have been with us almost a year and a half now, right?
That's right, going on a year and a half.
Right. So start us off with, how long have you been a priest?
Sure. You know, when I first agreed to this little interview,
Yes.
I realized that there's lots of parts of my life that are very boring. So I assume you don't mind if I make some stuff up. Is that all right?
Spin your story.
Okay. We live in the era of a false narrative. You know?
Absolutely. Make full use of that.
Just kidding.
So you've been a priest for how many years now?
I was ordained in 1984,
Okay.
so I've been a priest for 38 years. I came in the order a little late. I was 37 when I came in the order.
So what has it meant for you to be a member of the Society of Jesus? You obviously chose the society and not to be a diocesan priest or a
Right.
priest of another order. So what drew you to the Jesuits?
First of all, I had an uncle, he passed away, he was a Jesuit, and I went to a Jesuit high school, so I had them as a background and as a base. But I wasn't going through college and high school, I didn't even think of a vocation. Later, when I was 35 or so, and I started thinking about the possibility of a vocation, I was at a Trappist monastery up in Northern California, and a wise monk said, the first thing you have to figure out in this vocation business is whether or not you have a monastic vocation, because that's very unique.
It's very different.
And then he said, if you don't have a monastic vocation, join the Jesuits, because they're doing everything else. They do missions, they do parishes, they do high schools, they do colleges, and they have the resources and the corpus to support you in what you're doing. And it was very good advice.
You found it to be true.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so 35 years, you were 35 years old when you started seriously considering this vocation.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about pre-Jesuit life. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Jose, California. I know in Montana it's always dangerous to name California. But I must say, Montana's been found out now, not just by Californians, but by everybody.
Including me.
Yeah.
I'm a transplant.
But anyway, I grew up in San Jose, California. I had great parents, you know, and the older I get and the more I look in the rearview mirror, I realize how blessed I was with my parents. They were both children of Irish immigrants, basically. Both my mother and father went to Catholic colleges. My dad went to Santa Clara. Mm-hmm. My mother went to Dominican college. And they just decided early on that they were going to raise a large family, and their ministry, their goal in life was to raise a good Catholic family.
So how many siblings do you have?
So I have 5 siblings.
Wow.
And I'm the second line. We have 4 guys and 2 gals. I'm second in line. Grew up in a Catholic parish in San Jose, went to Bellarmine High School in San Jose, which is a Jesuit high school.
Very well known.
I went 1 year, my freshman year, to Carroll College in Helena, Montana.
No kidding.
And then I did 3 years at Notre Dame. I shifted to Notre Dame my sophomore year, graduated from there in 1962.
Okay, 1962. So after 1962, you did some other things. You want to tell us about your life in the military a little bit?
Right on. When I was a freshman at Carroll College, the Marine Corps recruiters came by. And the Marine Corps, as you probably know, they don't have ROTC, but they have this platoon leaders course, which you can sign up in college. You don't do anything during the school year, but during the summers, before you graduate from college, you have to complete 12 weeks back at Quantico, Virginia.
Okay.
And they try to sort out the group. And if you can pass that, then you're commissioned. That's why it's such a unique program. At graduation, as second lieutenant, and then you go back to Quantico for 6 months of officer. You're already an officer, but officer training.
Right.
So that's what I did.
So what drew you to that? And this was the Vietnam era.
Vietnam hadn't started yet.
No.
I was a freshman in college of 58, 59.
Oh yeah, this is earlier yet.
But my dad had served as a Navy officer during World War II.
Okay.
And an uncle that we all admired very much, married to my aunt, a guy from Ireland, had joined the Marine Corps. And
Okay.
he was in the thick of it in the Pacific. So we had these two icons, my dad and my Uncle Pat. So when the Marine Corps recruiter came along, I said,
Why not?
why not? Love
Yeah,
to do
it's
it.
part of the family heritage.
That's right.
Wow, fantastic. So, so what was your entire length of tenure?
3 years.
3 years in the
3
Marine
years of
Corps.
active duty.
Wow.
And it started when I graduated in July of 62 and ended in the end of June in 65.
So a little bird told me that you, I think post Marine Corps, that you did a stint sailing for a while.
That's right.
So now this is interesting to me. So what did you do? Because I heard it involved a long passage at least once.
Well, a couple of them.
Yeah.
What happened was our unit went over to Vietnam just in the early stages of it.
Okay.
So I didn't have the full Vietnam experience. But coming back from that to where we were stationed beforehand, which was in Kaneohe, Hawaii, getting ready to get discharged, I met a lieutenant colonel who was getting ready to retire from the Army. No family, and he had purchased about 2 years before that a sailboat, and he was looking for a crew to take the boat from Hawaii to Australia through the South Pacific. And he couldn't get any of his Army buddies because they were still on active duty. So I came home to San Jose and got two of my buddies, including one guy that was engaged to get married. That's another story altogether.
Sounds like somebody was unhappy about this
Well, he
arrangement.
eventually got married to that same gal, but it
eventually
there were a
happened.
few speed bumps. But the three of us came back from California and crewed for this guy. I was on the boat for about 2 years that time.
Wow.
He, the skipper, the owner, Dave Erlingcotter, took the boat around the globe in 5.5 years, west about,
Wow.
So I crewed for him for 2 years down to Tahiti initially, and then west from Tahiti all throughout the islands down to Australia. I left the boat in Australia. You can't just keep going. You have to wait for the proper seasons. The monsoon season comes into the southern Indian Ocean and things like that. He was subsequent cruise. He actually had about 3 different crews.
Oh my gosh.
Went around the complete globe. I
Fascinating.
stayed in touch with him, and 9 years later, I went out and with 2 other guys, myself and Dave, the owner, we took the boat for 11 months down to Tahiti and the Marquesas Islands and the Tuamotus and back to Honolulu. And that was a time when I was seriously considering, where am I going with this life?
Well, it sounds a bit more adventuresome than the priesthood to be sailing to exotic locations. So, what happened on board boat? What brought you ultimately to your vocation?
Sure. Well, first of all, unfortunately, you can't just keep sailing forever. You run out of resources if the boat doesn't wear out.
Yeah.
But what was happening was I had good jobs. I worked in the stockbroker business. I worked in industrial real estate and all that kind of thing. But I read a very interesting lecture or a talk that Merton gave to his novices on integrity and vocation. And he poses the question, how are you supposed to get to where you're going in life if you spend your whole life walking down roads to other men's cities? And it was one of those moments like somebody picked up a baseball bat and hit me in the head. And I was doing all the right thing, good things.
Yeah.
But they weren't my things.
Yeah.
Okay?
It wasn't your road.
And the other thing, I think these ultimate questions come up in everybody's life, but they usually come up, and the answer has to come up in the context of a commitment. I'm married, or I've got this going, or I've got these responsibilities. In my case, when the questions came up, I was completely free. maybe too free. So I did some discerning, made a retreat, talked to some folks, and about a year later, after having that insight, applied to the Society of Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, so as they say, the rest is history. You became in short order, not with the Jesuits, years of becoming a priest involved. Right. But you since have had various assignments.
Right
on. What's the highlight in terms of the assignments you've had, or?
Well, I've had two different kinds of assignments. Because I had a business background, I've either been in administration of one kind or another within the organization. For example, I was province treasurer twice, and I was superior of our retirement center at Los Gatos. Those are kind of in-house administrative jobs. Or I've been at parishes.
Okay.
I've been pastor at 3 different parishes, and I got the reputation of pulling Jesuits out of parishes. 2 of the parishes that I was the pastor of, we pulled out of and gave back to the diocese. And the third one, the next guy after me did it. So I had this reputation of being the guy that turns out the lights. When I was assigned to...
It's not happening here, folks. Just
when I was assigned to
full
Montana,
disclosure.
Everybody said, oh no.
He's the Grim Reaper cometh.
But, you asked about interesting assignments. Right after I got ordained, I was looking forward to being in pastoral work or something like that. And the provincial asked me, because the treasurer they had for the province he'd been in the saddle long enough and he wanted to be replaced. The provincial asked me if I'd be the treasurer of the province.
Yeah.
And I thought, I've been trying to get away from business, and here I am in more business than I imagined, with all this kind of stuff. And he said, he's a very wise guy. He said, the guys you're going to be dealing with and the women you're going to be dealing with as consultants, as brokers, as investment counselors, you name it, they're going to know you're a priest. You don't have to wear it on your sleeve. And you're going to find more conversations that open up the door for pastoral conversation. And he was right.
And that turned out to be true.
That's true. I served in that job for 6 years right after ordination, and it had a very strong pastoral component to it.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that point out, because you'd think, administratively, you wouldn't,
right.
you wouldn't have those pastoral connections. But in fact, it ends up, people open up to you.
Yeah, same kind of thing.
I'll make you the loan, Father, but first hear my confession.
Well, how they talk about the ministry in the parking lot. There are a lot of people, especially guys, that will not call up and make an appointment to come see a priest.
Well, it's
but
true.
if you happen to be out in the parking lot, and the guy's out there, you start shooting the bull, next thing you know, you got a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
It's just being there and being available in a way that is non-threatening.
So obviously your best assignment so far has been here at St. Francis Xavier Parish. But of all the assignments then you've had, has there been one that has been your favorite?
Looking back, the parish assignments have been great.
Yeah.
There is a certain repetition to the liturgical calendar.
Sure.
And some guys, it doesn't bother them at all. For me, 3 years and then 6 years, I feel like we've just been going around in circles. So that's why I've been happy to have breaks from that work.
Right.
But in answer to the question, what has been that first job after ordination, when I was province treasurer and was dealing with all these lay folks as consultants and as brokers and one thing or another, that was a rich time. Mm-hmm. That was a rich time. And that was probably the highlight. Maybe the first time I was around. The second time as treasurer, it was a little more boring,
So, and you might have kind of mentioned this already. So what as a priest, as a Jesuit, have you in your career have found most challenging and or most life-giving, if we can contrast those two?
The most life-giving part is walking with people and talking with them and listening with them and them myself in terms of their relationship with God, mm-hmm. and how it is expressing itself in their life right now. Mm-hmm. I remember somebody once saying, it's a very awkward time to be a priest in the Roman Catholic Church because of all the stuff that's going on now. Mm-hmm. But there are very few places in life where you have the opportunity to walk with people and talk with them about their relationship with God, and at the same time deal with your own relationship with God. So that's been the highlight of my Jesuit life. Not to mention the fact that there's a great bunch of guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was mentioning just beforehand how our provincial is coming us. I mean, one after another, these provincials we've had would be great leaders anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and just good men, you know, who really try to stay close to Jesus and walk with him. And then all the guys I've been stationed with, wonderful, including this crowd.
Right.
Okay,
Well, we're exceptional.
good bunch of
We're
guys.
exceptional people. And the
Now,
Jesuits are exceptional.
The
I thought you were talking about the operational staff
Oh,
as being
sure.
exceptional.
Sure.
Us too, maybe.
For sure, for sure. No, I'm not kidding. This is a great operation here. The challenging part is, in 2012, a few months before he died, Cardinal Carlo Martini, who was the Cardinal Archbishop of Milan, he was being interviewed, and he said, "This dear church of ours is 200 years behind the times." And he was, then he went on at some length, and he was really shining something on. You know, we've all heard about the train wreck of the sex abuse, and as equally as bad as the sex abuse, the covering it up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, the rampant, clericalism in the church, where the hierarchy and the priests and certain lay people that back them up take the benefits, all the good things about being a member of the clergy, and use it in a self-referential manner,
Mm-hmm.
rather than serving people. So that whole part and all the calamity that's gone with that's made it really tough.
Yeah.
When I go to my Marine Corps reunions, you can see a lot of the guys are Christians, but they're not Catholics, and they read the newspapers. So every 3 years we get together and you say, "Gee, John, you're still on the boat.
You're still on the boat. Yeah.
You know?
And it's been challenging.
Oh, yeah.
It's been challenging for the church worldwide. It's been challenging here locally. I think it's been a great burden for the church, and one that they're finally having some reconciliation, or at least some repentance over,
Yeah, that's a step in the right direction, and not everybody's on board with that.
No.
But transparency, we've got to open up the priesthood to people other than male celibates only.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask this rhetorical question. If we had people who were moms and dads, grandparents, as bishops, as pastors, as priests, as cardinals, do we think that the cover-up of sex abuse of children would have gone on as long as it has? Impossible.
Yeah.
These are people with children.
No,
Okay? It just would not have happened.
Yeah.
But if you got an old boys club, and the image is more important than the victims that have been hurt,
Yeah.
this stuff can happen.
Yeah.
So we got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And you and I don't have enough years left to see real changes. This boat.
But as you mentioned, you do your part, and you have found that this isn't just a road for, it's not only about the universal church, but it's about everyone's individual role in it, your role as a priest in it, and how you come along on that journey as well as anybody else does.
Certainly.
And so it is going to take a while for the church to heal, especially in regard to that.
Sure.
So I've got one more question for you, and you look like you got a lot of tread left on the tire yet, John.
It's the lighting.
It's the lighting. So you're going to be with us for a little longer. So what's next? What does Father John Martin want to do next?
It's probably time after this year, that will be 2 years here in Missoula, to step off the boat onto the dock. The provincial will determine whether that's okay, and if so, where to go. One natural place where I've been on 3 different assignments is Los Gatos. In addition to being an age-specific environment there, where you're not rooting around in the refrigerator 3 times a day, and there's good places to work and walk in the hills. There's also a lot of projects that guys can get assigned to out of there,
Right.
assisting others.
Yeah.
So that might be a strong possibility.
Strong possibility
But
for you.
you never want to gainsay what the provincial might say. you know.
Right. So I like to end this interview with a question, and it's shamelessly stolen from James Lipton in his famous Artist Studio interviews. But Father John Martin has passed away. He's at the pearly gates. And what would you like to hear Jesus say to you?
Dude, come on in.
I think I'd like to hear that too. Well, thank you, Father John. I appreciate you taking this time to visit with us today and let our parishioners know a little bit more about the now less mysterious Father John Martin.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.